when I saw 7 men marching toward my porch under the moonlight, led by the man who stole my wife. I didn't reach for the phone.
Listen, we have
I
to
told
move
my
now.
daughter to lock
Criminals
the
are
safe
coming.
room and
Go
watch
hide
the
somewhere
cameras.
safe.
She asked, trembling, "Dad, are you going to hurt them?" I whispered, "No, honey, I'm just going to remind them who I am." Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. I had been out of the Navy for 8 years. 8 quiet, decent years trying to raise my daughter.
Listen,
in
we
peace.
have to move now.
Until that
Criminals
night
are
when
coming.
the past I
Go
buried
hide somewhere
decided
safe.
to dig itself up. My name's Dominic, and before I became a single father, I trained SEAL kill teams for a living. Teaching men how to enter a room and make ghosts of their enemies was my specialty. It was all muscle memory, calculation, control. But no amount of tactical discipline could have prepared me for the one betrayal that truly broke me. My wife walking out with her boss, Grant, and leaving me to raise our daughter alone. Grant wasn't just any man. He was everything I despised: rich, arrogant, and heartless. The type who smiled in public and broke people in private. When my wife, Morgan, started working at his company, she'd come home smelling like fancy cologne I didn't own. By the time I realized, it was too late. She'd taken our savings, her new car, and most of my peace. What she left me was Violet, our daughter, and the kind of silence that wakes you up at 3 a.m. For years, I told myself to forgive, to breathe, to keep my head down. But that calm ended the day Violet walked through the front door of our cabin with a bruise on her cheek. "Who did this?" I asked. She bit her lip. "A boy at school, Kyle." It wasn't just any bully. Kyle was Grant's son, the product of the same affair that destroyed my marriage. The moment I heard that name, I froze. Grant, the man who humiliated me in front of my entire world, his child, had dared to touch mine. I tried to handle it the right way. I went to the school, spoke to the principal. The man couldn't even meet my eyes. "Grant's on the school board," he muttered. "Maybe it's best if you talk to him directly." Talk to him. Like that ever solved anything. So that's what I did. I drove down to Grant's mansion, the same damn house Morgan moved into after she left me. The driveway alone looked like it could fit 10 of our old homes. I rang the bell. She answered. Morgan looked different, expensive, colder. "Dominic," she said stiffly, "you shouldn't be here." "I'm not here for you," I said quietly. "Your son hit my daughter." She tilted her chin up, smiling faintly. "Kyle said Violet called him names. Kids fight." She came home bleeding. "Morgan, then maybe teach her not to provoke people." That was the moment I realized she was beyond saving. Everything decent in her had rotted away beside that man's money. "Keep Kyle away from my daughter," I said, stepping back. "For your sake and his." Her eyes flickered with a sort of smug pity. "You really haven't moved on, have you?" I walked off before my temper boiled over. That night, as I tucked Violet in, she asked, "Dad, why don't people believe you're a good man?" It was a harder question than she knew. "Because good men don't always have the loudest voices," I told her, kissing her forehead. I thought the battle was over. But a week later, I got a message on my phone, a video. In it, Violet was walking home from school, and a group of older boys shoved her into a puddle. Behind the camera, someone laughed softly. Then a voice I'd never forget said, "Teach that brat what happens when her daddy talks tough." It was Grant's voice. My hands went cold. I could handle men with guns and knives. But this was something darker, something personal. The next day, I reported it. The police shrugged. "Looks like teenage mischief," one of them said. I saw the smirk that told me Grant had already made a few phone calls. So I waited. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't post online. I didn't even tell Violet everything. I watched, listened, and planned. Because here's the one thing Grant never understood. Men like me don't explode. We calculate. I installed new locks, double layers on every door, set cameras and hidden alarms connected to my phone. Violet didn't question it. She'd grown up with drills ever since I taught her what a safe room was. That Friday night, the rain came down hard. Violet was watching cartoons, wrapped in a blanket. I was finishing up dinner when my motion sensor went off. "Front gate," 7 bodies moving fast, coordinated but clumsy. Civilian style. My heart didn't beat faster, it slowed down. Focus sharpened like glass. I turned off the stove, walked to Violet's room. "Remember what we practiced?" I whispered. Her eyes widened. "Is it bad people again?" "Yes, honey. Go to your spot. Stay quiet. Don't come out till I say so." She nodded, took her teddy bear, and slipped behind the false wall that concealed the safe room. Outside, headlights pierced the rain. And there he was, Grant, standing in the center like a commander, holding a metal bat. Behind him, 7 men, each one broad, tattooed, drunk on false confidence. I opened the door before they could knock. "You came to my house," I said evenly. Grant smirked. "You touched my family when you cornered Morgan. You scared my son. Consider this payback." He spat the word family like he owned the meaning. "You shouldn't have involved my daughter," I said quietly. "Oh, come on." She started it, he sneered. "And you? You're nothing but a washed-up grunt playing soldier in a cabin." The man beside him laughed. He looked scared already. I stepped aside, letting them see the faint glow of security cameras inside. "Before you come in, you should know something." Grant frowned. "What's that?" "I train SEAL kill teams." For a heartbeat, they paused. Then Grant chuckled nervously. "You're bluffing." I didn't answer. I just let the rain fill the silence until the first one stepped forward. That's when Violet's voice came through the intercom, soft, shaking. "Dad, are you going to hurt them?" I stared at the men crossing my line, then looked at the camera, straight at her. "No, honey. I'm just going to remind them who I am." And when the first one swung his bat, I moved. The first man's swing came fast, wide, sloppy, furious. I stepped inside his reach, took his wrist, twisted until the bone cracked, and drove my shoulder into his chest. His breath left in a sob before he hit the floor. The others froze, their shoes scraping mud into my doorway. The rain thudded harder, drowning out Grant's muttered, "What the hell?" The second came charging in with a yell. He didn't make it 2 steps before my boot swept his knee sideways. He went down screaming. And that's when the rest rushed at once. I didn't think. I calculated. 6 left. Every strike was clean, silent, surgical. I made sure none of them died. Morgan might have walked away from my soul, but Violet still needed her father to walk upright. 10 minutes later, the house was still. 7 men groaning across my floorboards. Mud, blood, sweat, and that faint metallic smell that fight scenes always leave behind. Only Grant remained standing, soaked and white-faced, gripping the bat like he wasn't sure which end to use. I pointed to the living room camera light, blinking red. "Still think I'm bluffing?" He didn't answer. "Take your men," I said quietly. "Leave before I forget I promised my daughter I wouldn't hurt you." He stared at me. That mix of anger and fear cowards where when money can't protect them. Then he lowered the bat, jaw tight. "You'll regret this, Dominic. I have friends, real ones." "Then bring them next time," I said. "I trained better ones." He dragged one man to his feet, limped to his truck, and drove off into the rain. I didn't watch him go. I locked the door, picked up Violet, and told her everything was fine. I lied through a smile. But the next morning, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. Unknown numbers. Then an official-looking text. "Mr. Dominic, you are under investigation for aggravated assault." By noon, 2 squad cars were at my driveway. Not questioning Grant, questioning me. "Sir," the officer said with the tone of someone already sure of the ending, "we've reviewed the footage. Looks like excessive force." I stared at him. "They broke into my home." He shrugged. "That's for the lawyers to decide." I realized then, the system wasn't blind, it was bought. Violet clung to me when they cuffed my wrists. "Daddy, where are they taking you?" "Just a misunderstanding," I told her softly. "Stay inside until Eliza calls." The name hadn't meant anything to the young officer, but his eyes twitched at it anyway. At the station, I sat behind a steel desk while they typed my name like it was a headline they already agreed on. Grant's version of the story was clean, terrifyingly clean. He said he came over to calm things after a parent dispute, and I snapped. His friends backed him up with identical statements. I'd seen war propaganda less rehearsed than that. 3 hours later, my lawyer arrived, the one the state assigned, the one who looked like he'd never read a combat report or handled a real case. Best bet is a plea, he said without looking up from his papers. Or, I asked, or you risk losing custody of your daughter. That hit harder than any punch. The sound of my own pulse filled the tiny room. For a moment, all the strategy, all the training and mental control, it vanished. Losing Violet was unthinkable. I took the plea recommendation and stayed silent for the night, knowing silence was survival. When they released me on bail the next morning, I found Morgan waiting on the steps outside. She looked perfectly put together, her hair dry, her diamond smile fixed like a mask. I told you to stay away from Grant, she said coolly. Now look, Violet's scared out of her mind. The school's calling, and your reputation's ashes. You think you can play innocent? I said. I didn't make you attack him, she replied. I didn't make you relive your Navy fantasies. Maybe you should have kept that anger therapy you skipped. For the first time in years, I saw it clearly. She wasn't just blind to Grant's manipulation, she fed it. You believed every word he said. I told her. Didn't you? She adjusted her necklace. I don't need to believe. The world already does. She turned to leave, heels clicking, satisfied with her parting wound. But halfway to her car, she stopped and looked back, just long enough to smirk. By the way, Grant's filing for custody. Full custody. I stood there on the station steps as her car vanished, and one word bounced in my skull. War. But not the kind I once fought. This war would be fought in silence, with truth, not blood. That evening, I drove home. Violet met me at the door, eyes red from crying, her voice shaking. Dad, did you really hurt those men bad? I knelt to her level. Do you believe I would ever hurt someone for no reason? She thought for a long moment, then whispered, No, you only protect. And just like that, the noise in my head quieted. We stood there in the doorway, a father and daughter against the world. I promised her right then I would never lose her to the kind of people who measured love in bank accounts. So that night, when I tucked her into bed, I made a different kind of call. Not to friends, not to soldiers, to someone who owed me a favor, the only favor I'd ever call in. When the woman's voice answered, crisp and calm, I said, Eliza, it's Dominic. I need your help. A pause, then a slow, deliberate reply. I wondered how long it would take for him to push you that far. The next morning, Grant's smile returned, on TV. He gave interviews, played the victim, flashed bruises I didn't cause. Morgan sat beside him, dabbing fake tears, telling reporters she feared for Violet's safety. That haunting phrase, feared for her safety, spread like infection. The world believed them faster than I could breathe. But there's something the world doesn't understand about men like me. When they strip you of peace, pride, and reputation, what's left is focus. And I was more focused than ever. By the third day, Eliza arrived at my cabin. Black car, flawless suit, the type of quiet presence people instantly respect. She stepped through the door, eyes scanning the broken frames, the mud on the porch. So this is how he plays, she said. Classic cover-up turnout. Media in front, cops behind. I nodded. He's coming for Violet next. We'll make sure he never does, she said simply, setting her briefcase down. In that moment, the weight of the entire week pressing down, I finally believed there might be a way out that didn't involve fists. What I didn't know yet was that Grant had already made his next move. And this time, he wasn't sending men, he was sending the law. The morning after Eliza arrived, sunlight fell through the cracked blinds like it didn't know the truth that hid inside this cabin. Papers covered my table. Police reports, camera angles, timestamps. Every piece of evidence showing Grant's men had come here first. Eliza stood beside me, arms folded, scanning the footage. This is clean, she said. Too clean. You didn't touch Grant, only defended your home. Then why do I feel like the one under siege? I asked. She gave a short half-smile. Because you are. He's turning your truth into his version of control. She was right. By noon that day, a county deputy came to the door, polite face, uneasy posture, and handed me a family court notice. It said Grant was demanding emergency temporary custody of Violet, claiming my mental health was unstable. It mentioned combat training, temperament issues, and aggression tendencies. In other words, what made me strong was now being used to paint me as dangerous. Eliza read the notice carefully. He's manipulating the timeline, making it sound like you snapped before they ever came here. I stared at Violet playing on the porch with her coloring book, sunlight lighting up her hair. My chest tightened. He's not just coming for me, Eliza. He's coming for her future. Then we take this to court, she said calmly. But you have to let me lead. That night, when the house finally went quiet, I stepped outside for air. I looked at the woods around us, the same woods where I'd taught Violet how to set up perimeter alarms as a game. Now I wasn't sure if games ever existed here. Half an hour later, sensors triggered again. I checked the camera feed on my phone. 2 cars this time. No headlights, circling slow along the gravel road. I zoomed in. County plates, but not standard issue. I woke Eliza. They're back. She moved fast, grabbing her briefcase. Police. Private security. Hired muscle, but dressed official. She frowned. He's pushing boundaries. We crouched near the window, watching the cars stop near the fence. Men stepped out quietly, scanning with flashlights. They weren't here to talk. Eliza whispered, "I'll call the sheriff's office." I shook my head. Don't. If those are his men, they'll make it look like I provoked it again. We need evidence. So, I switched the porch light on. Made it clear I wasn't hiding. I stepped outside slowly, empty hands visible. There were 7 again. Different faces, same arrogance. Grant must have run out of ideas, but never out of money. The one in front held up a piece of paper, pretending formality. "Mr. Dominic," he said, "we're here to serve a warrant to search the property for illegal weapons." I didn't move. "Show me the signed warrant." He lowered his hand, fake smile cracking. "You don't want to make this difficult." Behind him, another man gripped his jacket pocket, a weapon print clearly outlined. I spoke loud enough for the security camera mic to catch every word. "You enter without a real warrant, and this footage goes straight to county and federal." For a moment, they hesitated. Then the one with the warrant spat on the ground and barked, "Your word means nothing in this town, soldier." That was when I heard Violet's voice from inside, tiny, terrified. "Dad." The man glanced toward the sound, smirking. "You raising her to fight too?" That was it. The last line of provocation my patience could stomach. But I knew better this time. The goal wasn't to hurt them. It was to record them. I unlocked the front gate and opened it wider. "Go ahead then," I said. "Search what you came for." Their confusion lasted seconds before they realized I was letting the trap close around them. They stepped inside, confident again. I stood back just far enough for the cameras to frame everything perfectly. Illegal entry, threats, intent. Eliza, unseen in the shadows, documented every second from her phone. They searched, breaking drawers, tossing boxes, never realizing that their own words were being captured. Then the man in charge barked, "Nothing here." Another replied, "He probably moved the guns already." The leader turned on me, shoving my shoulder. "You think you're clever, huh?" I looked him dead in the eye. "No. Careful." By the time they realized how obvious their intimidation looked on camera, it was over. Eliza stepped out, flipping her phone screen toward them. "You've all just committed unlawful entry and harassment. I'm forwarding this footage to the Federal Oversight Board for Military Veterans." The color drained from their faces. Without another word, they backed out, muttering curses, jumped into their vehicles, and tore down the road. When the engines faded, Eliza exhaled slowly. "You played that like a field operation." I nodded. "He's escalating. He wouldn't risk that unless he was running out of backup plans." She looked at me carefully. "Or running out of time." Inside, Violet peeked from the hallway. Her voice was small. Are we safe now? I bent to her level. Always, I said. Because we tell the truth no matter who lies louder. But deep down, I knew. Truth had never scared men like Grant. Only exposure did. 2 days later, that exposure came quietly. A brown envelope arrived at my door with no sender address. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, and surveillance images from Grant's company, showing payouts to local officials, including the very officer who first arrested me. Eliza looked through them fast, her eyes hardening. This is evidence of corruption tied to Grant's company accounts. Someone on the inside leaked this. But why help us? I asked. Maybe an employee he forgot to pay, she said flatly. Or maybe someone he betrayed. We didn't have to wait long to find out. That same evening, Eliza's phone buzzed with a private number. She put it on speaker. A voice came through, disguised, low and deliberate. You don't know me, but I used to work for Grant. You're not safe at night. He's planning another hit. Not thugs this time. Professionals. Then the line went dead. Eliza looked at me. How soon? I didn't answer. I was already locking doors, checking the rifle safe, ensuring Violet was asleep. Because if Grant was desperate enough to send trained men, the next few hours would decide everything. Who kept their freedom, their daughter, their story. As I finished bolting the back door, I caught sight of headlights again down the road. 2 vehicles this time, low, unmarked. My heart slowed into the rhythm I hadn't felt since combat. Steady, sharp, ready. I whispered into the hidden mic near Violet's safe room. Stay very quiet now, baby girl. Just trust Daddy. Eliza checked her pistol, loaded 1 round. How far do you plan to take this? As far as it takes to keep her safe, I said. But not 1 step further. No mistakes. The reflection of those approaching headlights grew brighter on the window glass. Voices outside, male, precise, military. Grant had crossed the last line. I stared into the dark woods where my cameras blinked red and whispered under my breath. You started this war on my doorstep. Let's finish it under the truth. The front door latch clicked once. Then, footsteps inside. The front door creaked. Then a breath. Faint, controlled, military-grade discipline. Whoever these men were, they weren't amateurs. They moved in tight formation, their boots barely whispering against my wooden floor. Eliza crouched behind the counter, unholstered her sidearm without sound. I gave a small hand signal. Hold. Silent. From the glow of my security feed, I counted them. 6 men, armed, scanning corners in practiced arcs. Night ops posture. Grant didn't send thugs this time. He sent soldiers for hire. The first one cut toward the kitchen. Another 2 moved toward the hall. They were careful enough that I almost admired them. Almost. I triggered a remote on my watch. The lights went black. Instant confusion. Clear your lanes, one barked, voice low, gravelly. In that darkness, I could breathe again. It was the kind of quiet that separated the trained from the brave. And I'd lived in that silence longer than these mercenaries had been alive. The first one crossed the living room. Too fast. Corner exposed. I stepped behind him, disarmed, and used his own suppressed weapon to sweep his legs. He hit the carpet soundlessly. Second one turned toward the noise, a split second too late. Eliza dropped the magazine from his rifle and smashed the butt into his jaw before he could blink. 1 hit. Down. Third one fired blind. Quick flash, short burst. I ducked low, felt wood splinters scrape my arm, rolled forward, and swept his ankle. His head met the cabinet corner, breath gone, lights out. 3 down. The fourth man, closest to the hall, thundered forward, straight toward Violet's safe room. That single direction made something inside me snap cold. I didn't think. I sprinted, fast, silent, and hit him halfway down the hall. The collision slammed us both into the wall. His elbow came up. I blocked, twisted, pinned him. Who sent you? I hissed through my teeth. His answer was a whisper. Grant said make it look like robbery. That was all I needed. I pressed the pressure point at his neck, enough to put him under, not enough to kill. He dropped. Eliza's voice cut through the dark. One left. I turned. The last was smarter. He'd slipped outside already, using the chaos as cover. Through the broken blinds, I saw him sprint toward his SUV, headset glowing green, still talking. He was reporting in. I grabbed the flashlight, aimed at him, and hit record on my phone camera linked to the security feed. His voice came through the mic clear as day. Entry failed. For men down. The target's alive. Repeat, the target's alive. Tell Grant he underestimated him. Then he heard my voice behind him. You should have stayed anonymous. He spun, frozen under the beam, eyes wide. I didn't chase. I let him run. Because that audio, those words, were more valuable than any takedown. 10 minutes later, the storm outside died. Inside, the house looked like a memory shattered. Knocked over furniture, boxes scattered, a single photo of Violet cracked on the floor. I picked it up, slid the glass shard carefully from her smile, and exhaled. Eliza was standing near the stairs, checking her arm. 10 minutes, she said softly. That's all it took. 10 minutes of silence, I said, staring at the door. That's what happens when a man mistakes peace for weakness. She tapped her phone. I've uploaded the footage and audio. Backup's encrypted. You have undeniable proof now. I nodded. Then the noise begins for him. Violet whispered from the safe room doorway. Is it over, Dad? I walked over, lifted her up gently, her little fingers gripping my shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear. For now, but we have to be brave a little longer. She rested her head on my shoulder. You always win, right? That question burned deeper than it should have. Not always, I said. But when the truth fights beside us, it helps. That night, after Violet fell asleep between us on the couch, Eliza scrolled through the video feed frame by frame. Every shadow, every face, time-stamped and clear. They'll deny it, she said. Men like Grant always deny. Then we make ignorance expensive, I said. She turned toward me, serious. Dominic, once this goes to court, he'll come harder. He'll attack professionally, socially, financially. Are you ready for all of it? I looked at my sleeping daughter and nodded once. He already attacked all that matters. Now we're just cleaning up. Near midnight, the rain began again, steady, quiet, heavy. The storm outside couldn't compete with the one that had taken root in my chest. I sat there watching Violet breathe peacefully, wondering how far Grant's desperation would stretch before it broke him. I didn't know the answer yet, but deep down, I sensed the game had changed. He'd lost control of fear. Now he was ruled by it. The proof we held wasn't just defense, it was leverage. And in the kind of war he played, leverage was more lethal than bullets. By morning, the headlines were already twisting the story. Local news flashed phrases like ex-Navy veteran involved in conflict escalation, and civilian witnesses report tactical behavior. Grant was shaping the narrative, painting me as dangerous, unpredictable. But then something unexpected appeared on one outlet. One blurry clip, grainy, shaky, taken from a distance, showing men in black entering my property unprovoked. Eliza's eyes lit up. Who shared this? No idea, I said, leaning forward. She smiled faintly. Looks like one of his mercenaries didn't appreciate being left behind. Or someone finally realized who the real monster is, I said. That one leak began turning attention. Slowly, doubt was seeping into his carefully built version of the truth. But all that meant for Grant was that his mask was starting to crack. And men like him don't crumble quietly. When I stepped outside to get air again, the morning fog hung heavy over the fields. My property was quiet, but too quiet. That kind of silence never meant calm. It meant movement was getting ready again. And as I looked down the dirt road fading into fog, I knew this wasn't done. The next move was already on the way. When I woke, the house still smelled like rain and gunpowder. Violet was asleep on the couch, holding her stuffed bear tight. Eliza was at the kitchen table, a headset in her ear, her laptop glowing faint blue. She had been up all night. "They're moving faster than expected," she said as soon as she saw me. "Grant filed an injunction. He claims you're harboring illegal firearms and creating a threat to community safety." I poured coffee, trying to process how someone could twist reality that efficiently. "They can claim anything," I said. "They're not just claiming," she sighed. "They've already frozen your bank accounts." That hit harder than any punch. All my savings, everything from my work at the academy, gone in one digital second. Eliza shut her laptop. "He's weaponizing the system the way you weaponize tactics. Through pressure and fear." "How long till I lose custody too?" I asked. "That's what he wants." "But he tripped a wire last night." "Those hired men, one of them checked into urgent care. He listed his employer as Grant Underwood's construction firm. Now we have a paper trail." The coffee suddenly tasted less bitter. "He made his first mistake." "Exactly," she said. "We file countersuit at dawn, put his name under perjury, tampering, and private assault under corporate cover. It'll force discovery." I nodded slowly. "And all we have to do is last until then." Eliza glanced at the floor where the broken picture of Violet and Morgan still lay in pieces. "You sure you're ready to expose her too?" "She chose her side," I said quietly. "Now she lives with it." Before she could reply, tires crunched on gravel outside. A government sedan. Two uniformed officers stepped out, accompanied by a man in a suit with slicked hair and too much confidence. Eliza straightened. "Attorney for Child Services," she whispered. "He's early." I opened the door before they knocked. They expected someone desperate or angry, but I wasn't either. I was calm. Years of training made sure of that. "Mr. Dominic," the suit said, "we've received reports questioning the safety of your home environment for a minor." "You mean fabricated reports," I corrected. He smiled thinly. "We'll determine that ourselves." He stepped inside, scanning the room like a tourist in a museum of chaos. "You've got cameras everywhere. Is that for protection or paranoia?" "For proof," I said. He scribbled something on his pad. "We'll need to interview your daughter privately." Eliza's tone cut like ice. "You'll get proper authorization first. You're not entering the protected client's space without legal consent." The man didn't expect resistance. He glanced at her badge. "You must be his lawyer. You're obstructing a welfare check." "Not obstructing," she said, holding her ground. "Protecting due process." Violet appeared from the hallway, eyes sleepy. The officer kneeled, pretending kindness. "Hey, sweetheart, I just want to see if you feel safe here, okay?" Violet looked at me, then at him. "My dad makes me pancakes every Sunday, and he saved me from bad men last week." The officer glanced awkwardly away. The man in the suit smiled awkwardly. "That's nice. We'll file our notes." When they left, Eliza let out a long breath. "He's testing how far we'll bend. They'll paint you unstable if you raise your voice even once. Then we win by being steady," I said. Like always. That afternoon, clouds rolled back, and for the first time in days, sunlight broke through the trees. I sat on the back porch watching Violet draw on the deck, her little fingers tracing happy lines like she was trying to rewrite her world into something pure again. Eliza joined me quietly. "You ever wonder how it ended up like this?" she asked. "Every night," I said. "But wondering doesn't change it. Building does." She studied my face. "You don't look scared. Just tired." I finished for her. "Yeah, but not done." That evening, while Violet was finishing dinner, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stepped outside to answer it. A low, nervous voice said, "You don't know me, Dominic, but I was one of the men Grant sent that night." I froze. "Go on." "He lied to us. Said you attacked his son. He's trying to destroy you before the truth hits." "But some of us recorded everything. Audio of him planning the raid. His orders to make you look dangerous. I'm sending it to your lawyer." The call clicked off. Eliza rushed out as I re-entered. "What was that?" "Justice," I said. "Slow, but coming." She opened her laptop, clicked a few files. A new message blinked at the top. "Audio file attached." We played it. Grant's voice filled the room, arrogant, commanding. He thinks protecting his kid makes him untouchable. Send 7 men. Make noise. The cameras will break first. Once cops see blood, court tilts our way. Violet looked up from her drawing. That's Mom's friend. The one from the news. Eliza hit pause. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Now we have him, she said. If he's stupid enough to threaten you again, one warrant, and he's done. But Grant wasn't stupid. He was desperate. That night, a black SUV idled outside for hours, lights off. The same car from the recording. I didn't move. I wanted them to know I saw them. That fear had changed houses. When they drove off near midnight, Eliza finally spoke. Tomorrow, we file. The next morning came quiet, until I opened my phone. The first headline read, Local veteran charged, custody hearing set. And right below it, another link. Leaked audio may prove conspiracy. He'd lost control. That afternoon, the county courthouse filled with cameras, whispers, the smell of rain-soaked suits and perfume. On one side, Grant, Morgan beside him, pretending tears. On the other, me, Eliza, and truth. When it was my turn, I said only one thing to the judge. They came to my house. My daughter watched. And now you've heard his own voice ordering it. The judge's gavel hit once. Audio accepted as evidence. Court will adjourn until verification. Eliza exhaled relief. He's cornered. He doesn't realize it yet, but he's done. I looked past her, toward the gallery where Morgan sat stone still, eyes wide. For the first time, she looked afraid, not of me, but of what she'd chosen. Grant leaned toward her, whispering something that pulled the last color from her face. I didn't know what he said then, but I'd find out soon. Because monsters don't hide forever. Eventually, they eat themselves. The courthouse emptied slowly, like people leaving a theater after a movie that ended too suddenly. Grant walked out first, his arm tight around Morgan's shoulder. Reporters shouted questions. He smiled through them, the perfect mask of control. Eliza and I stayed behind in the quiet hallway. She studied my face carefully. You handled that exactly right. Calm, direct, credible. The judge believed you. I don't want belief, I said. I want proof that sticks. She nodded. And we have it. That recording cracked his wall, but we need to find what's behind it. The rot he's built his empire on. We walked out into gray light. Violet ran up to me, arms wide. Dad, can we go home now? I hugged her tight. Soon, baby. I promise. That night, the cabin felt different. Not safe, but steady. For the first time in weeks, Violet laughed during dinner, drawing silly faces in her mashed potatoes. Eliza helped me review evidence between bites of cold pizza, both of us too wired to sleep. By midnight, she leaned back, rubbing her neck. The man's company hides something bigger than this custody fight. I checked his old contracts, military subcontracting, offshore accounts, shell companies, foreign payments for consulting. Trafficking, I asked. Or weapon testing, she said quietly. Either way, he's laundering money through fake firms. I stared at the files. And Morgan's name? She signed the approvals. Every transaction, whether she knew or not. She's complicit. That silence hit hard. Morgan wasn't just a traitor to our marriage. She was now legally part of his crimes. Outside, thunder rolled across the woods. Eliza turned off her laptop. We'll take this to federal once we match the offshore accounts. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the look on Morgan's face in court. The fear. That wasn't guilt. It was panic. She was hiding something even from Grant. I decided to find out what. The next morning, I drove to the city, parked 3 blocks from the glass tower that held Grant's empire. Eliza didn't like me coming alone, but some conversations can't happen through lawyers. Morgan's car was already there, sleek, black, perfect. I waited outside until she walked out for coffee, heels clicking against marble. When she saw me across the sidewalk, she froze. Dominic, she said, voice smaller than I remembered. I nodded once. We need to talk. I can't. You already are. We stood between strangers rushing past. She kept her voice low. You shouldn't come here. He's watching you. I'm used to that. I leaned closer. Tell me what else he's hiding before this explodes and drags you down too. Her eyes darted. You think I can just walk away? Grant owns everything. My car, my house, every account. He doesn't own your conscience. She looked down, shaking. For the briefest second, I saw the version of her that used to matter, the woman before the money, before the corruption. Then she exhaled sharply. There's a safe in his office on the 26th floor. Blue folder. That's where the real contracts are. But if you go near it, you'll never make it out. I studied her face. Then help me get it. She hesitated, glancing toward the building's mirrored windows like they had eyes. He tracks everything. You can't imagine what he'd. Her phone buzzed. She looked, froze again. Grant's name flashed across the screen. Slowly, she turned it face down. Please, she whispered. Leave it alone. Just protect Violet. Forget the file. Before I could answer, her driver pulled up. She left fast, not turning back. I stood there watching the taillights vanish into traffic. The woman I once loved was now a ghost, trapped in a kingdom built on lies. When I returned home, Eliza was pacing the porch. You found her. She found me, I said. She warned me about a safe in his office covered in shell contracts. Eliza went quiet for a moment, then said, We can't break in. But if Morgan leads us to it accidentally, she'll be the key, I finished. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the woods felt amplified. I thought of Violet upstairs, dreaming safe because I'd made promises I couldn't risk breaking. So I sat there, cleaning my sidearm out of habit, not to use it, but to remind myself discipline was still mine. Near dawn, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. A message this time. You pushed too far. Next time, it won't be warnings. Attached was a photo, my own cabin, taken from the woods. Zoomed in through the kitchen window. I stepped outside, scanning the dark tree line. Nothing moved, but the air felt wrong. Cold, heavy, like someone had already been there. Eliza emerged in a hoodie, eyes half awake but alert instantly. Another threat? They're close, I said. He's losing grip. She looked at the message and sighed. We'll use it. Every threat, every word. Fear leaves a trail. The next day, her contact at the state attorney's office confirmed the audio file had passed verification. Grant's voice print matched perfectly. It would move to federal review within the week. He was running out of ground to stand on. And desperate men always do one thing. Try something reckless. That night, Morgan called. No greeting, no apology. Just shaking breath. Dominic, they know I told you about the safe. Where are you? Still in the house. He's locked his office and she stopped. Wait, he's coming. The line went dead. I called Eliza immediately. He's turned on her. She grabbed her jacket. Then we move. Now. We drove through rain-slick streets, headlights cutting through fog. I didn't tell Violet everything, just left her with a neighbor, promising I'd be back before sunrise. She believed me because lies don't live in our house anymore. By the time we reached Grant's mansion, something felt off. No guards outside. No lights. Just silence and open gates, like an invitation. As we stepped through the door, the smell hit first. Sharp, chemical, faint smoke. The living room was trashed, papers scattered. In the hallway, a sound, faint whimpering. Morgan sat against the wall, her face bruised, ankle twisted, eyes wide in disbelief. He's gone, she whispered. He took everything. The safe, the files. Said if anyone came looking, he'd make sure the cops finish what he started. Eliza crouched beside her. We'll get you medical care. You're safe now. Morgan's voice cracked. No one's safe. Not you. Not Violet. You don't understand what he's planning next. I looked around. Then explained. Her eyes met mine. He hired someone worse than those men you fought. A professional. He's coming for Violet. Tonight. For a long second, the air stopped moving. Eliza's phone buzzed again. An encrypted message from an unknown sender. He knows where the child is. The world narrowed to a single thought. I was out of time. The words, "he knows where the child is," froze everything inside me. Eliza met my eyes, already dialing the neighbor's number. No answer. She tried again. Still silence. I didn't wait. I ran. Out the door, down the marble steps, into the storm. The car door slammed. Tires spit gravel as we tore onto the road. Rain hammered the windshield. Each second stretched, my chest locked between rage and terror. Eliza's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "You think he'd really go after Violet himself?" "No," I said. "He'd send someone he can't control later." We cut through empty streets until the cab lights of the neighborhood appeared, our safe house glowing dim from a porch lamp. But something was wrong. The front door stood open, swinging slow, no sound inside. I jumped out, gun drawn. Inside, quiet. Too quiet. Dishes on the counter, cartoons still playing on the TV. Eliza moved with me, covering angles. Her whisper was the only sound. Clear left. I reached Violet's room. Empty bed, blanket dropped on the floor. My pulse spiked, vision narrowing. Then, faint, "Dad," her voice. From the closet. I ripped the door open. She crouched behind her toys, wide-eyed and shaking. "He came in," she whispered. "A man with a mask. He asked where you were." But then the alarm went off, and he ran. I scanned the room's camera feed on my phone. The last clip showed him, tall, black jacket, professional stance, moving like a ghost through the door and disappearing when the external sensors screamed. "Security scared him off," Eliza said. "But he'll try again." I pulled Violet close. Her heartbeat fluttered against my shoulder. "You did perfect, baby. You stayed quiet. Daddy's got you." Eliza looked at me. "He's escalating. He wants control before the federal review exposes him." I nodded. Then we ended. Back at the cabin, I got to work. We uploaded every file. The raid body cam audio, the mercenary admission, the threat messages, even the picture from the woods. Eliza connected a secure channel directly to the Federal Cyber Division. "They'll need more than crimes to freeze his power," she said. "They need motive." "Motive's simple," I told her. "He's not just wealthy. He's laundering defense funds. The blue folder in that safe proves it." She stared at me. "You still think it exists?" Morgan didn't lie. She couldn't. Eliza hesitated. "If the files are gone, they're not gone. He took them because it's the only thing left that can destroy him." That night, while Violet slept in the reinforced room, we traced the digital trail from his company's servers. Encryption walls stacked like fortresses. But Eliza knew how to pick locks. "Got something," she said at 2 a.m., screen reflecting in her eyes. File structure identical to defense-grade contracts, hidden under a fake construction permit. It's labeled Blue Archive. A single click opened a page full of bank codes, overseas transfers, and project names under fake identities. Black Harbor, Neptune Systems, Cronex City. Eliza whispered, "He's been selling restricted technology to banned nations for years." And every transaction bore 2 co-signatures, Grant Underwood and Morgan Underwood. The betrayal burned fresh again. She hadn't just left me. She had helped him build a fortune on betrayal. Eliza's voice softened. "Dominic, this is the key. It's everything." My jaw clenched. "Then we end the nightmare with this." We stayed up till dawn organizing evidence into a full brief. She called her federal contact, a prosecutor named Preston, and transmitted the data across a secure line. "This wins the case and the custody," she said. "But once he realizes it's gone, he'll panic. That makes him unpredictable." I was already looking through the window. The sun hadn't even risen, but a black car was parked down the road again. Watching. Waiting. By noon, Preston called back. The evidence had reached a task force unit. Arrest warrants were being prepared for Grant and his partners. But Preston's tone carried weight. "He's powerful. Expect backlash before surrender." He was right. Barely an hour later, Morgan's number flashed on my phone again. I hesitated, then answered. "Dominic." Her voice trembled. "He found out about the leak. He killed the server tech who helped you. He's leaving town with emergency passports. He said he'll burn everything before letting you win. Where is he now? The private airfield outside Hallow Creek. Please, don't go there. Just save Violet. The line broke off into static. Eliza glanced at me. You're thinking about going anyway. I'm thinking about ending this before he disappears forever. She sighed. We both know what that means. It means I stop being hunted. She stepped forward, eyes firm. If you go, you let me drive. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained iron gray. We headed east, the road empty, trees bending in the wind. Eliza loaded her pistol, voice low. You understand. If we face him, record everything. The law needs proof, not revenge. I'm not going there to kill him, I said. I'm going there to finish lying. As we reached the edge of the airfield, I saw his jet, silver, half ready, engines humming slow. Two men hauled suitcases into the rear while Grant stood near the stairs barking orders on his phone. Beside him, Morgan sat in the car, head down. He looked ordinary in that moment. A businessman about to leave, not a criminal who'd tried to destroy a family. And still, somehow, that made him more dangerous. Eliza parked behind a hangar. One chance. Get the final footage. I hit record. Grant turned suddenly. Maybe he felt it. His face twisted when he saw me step out from the rain. You never learn, do you? He shouted across the tarmac. I kept walking. You ran out of places to hide. Think a few hacked files will save you? The people I deal with never show up in court. He raised his hand, a signal. Two bodyguards stepped forward, guns half drawn. But before they could move, police sirens flared behind us. Eliza's call already reached the marshals. And then came the sound I'll never forget, Violet's voice on the radio, crying out from the line Eliza left open back at the cabin. Dad, someone's outside again. I froze. Grant grinned. You protect one door, soldier, you forget another. The world tilted. I turned to Eliza. Get home. Now. But go. I'll hold him here until you're safe. She sped off, sirens closing in, chaos rising. Grant tried to board the jet, but the marshals blocked him, shouting commands. I stood there in the whipping wind, heart pounding, staring into the storm I thought was ending, realizing it had only changed direction. Because this time, it wasn't me he was after. It was her. Eliza's taillights disappeared into the storm while I stood on the empty runway, the sound of rotor blades fading above. Grant was shouting at the marshals, waving papers that meant nothing anymore. His mask was breaking, cracks showing through the calm he'd worn for years. I could have stayed, could have watched the cuffs close around his wrists. But Violet's voice echoing in my earpiece, Dad, someone's outside again, ripped everything else away. I ran for the truck. Rain hit like shrapnel as I sped back onto the highway. My mind narrowed. Distance, direction, time. 10 miles. 8. 4. Each second felt like a lifetime. Eliza's voice cut through the static of the radio. Dominic, I'm 3 minutes out from the cabin. I called local units. They're 5 behind me. Stay with her when you get there. I said. What about Grant? He's done. This ends at home. The rain blurred everything, slicing through my headlights. Then a flash, a car parked sideways across the road. I slammed the brakes, skidding sideways into gravel. Out stepped a figure in tactical black, mask on, weapon drawn. He wasn't one of Grant's drunks. He moved clean, efficient, professional. He fired first, one burst across the hood. Glass shattered. I rolled out, dove behind the tailgate, returned 2 warning shots into the air. Enough to make him stall. Eliza, I hissed through the radio. Professional on the road. Get inside the panic room now. Already there, she replied. The gunman advanced, calm as machinery. I waited for his reload click, then lunged out low. It was close, brutal. His elbow caught my jaw, my fist caught his ribs. The fight was over in seconds. When I ripped off his mask, I froze. It wasn't a mercenary. It was one of the same police officers who'd arrested me weeks ago. His badge was taped beneath body armor. "Grant owns everything," he gasped through bloody teeth. "You can't stop it." I tied his hands and left him there for the real police. The storm was breaking apart overhead as I tore down the rest of the road, tires screaming. When I reached the cabin, the door was open. Inside, dark, quiet. My chest locked. I moved room to room. Then from behind the bookshelf came a whisper. "Dad?" "Violet." "Safe." Eliza beside her, pistol raised, breathing heavy. "Window sensor tripped," she said. But no entry. The sound of distant sirens rolled closer. For once, I was grateful. I hugged Violet tight. "It's over," I said. But in truth, something deeper had just begun. Grant's empire was crumbling faster than anyone realized. The next morning, the news broke nationwide. Footage of his arrest at the airfield looped on every channel. Words like fraud, laundering, conspiracy filled headlines. And in that whirl of chaos, Morgan vanished. Eliza found me packing boxes of evidence for the federal team. "You've won," she said quietly. "I kept my daughter alive," I said. "Winning's optional." She hesitated. "There's one more file we haven't opened. The encrypted one at the bottom of his server. It's not financial." "What then?" She typed in the key. The screen unfolded lines of private messages, each one time-stamped years back. Every file was a message from Morgan to Grant, mocking me, betraying me, while I was still training soldiers overseas. She'd been with him long before she told me goodbye. Eliza looked up to gauge my reaction, but I didn't flinch. The pain had burned out long ago. "You want me to delete them?" she asked. "No," I said. "Keep them. One day Violet'll want to know who we were before all this. She deserves the truth, not the story people tell." That night, quiet returned to the cabin for the first time in months. No headlights, no threats, just the sound of wind across the porch. Violet sat beside me with her blanket. "Dad, are the bad people gone?" "Most of them," I said softly. "Some are just learning what being bad really costs." "Mom, too." I looked at her, unsure how much honesty a child could bear. "She made mistakes. Big ones. But maybe now she'll wish she hadn't." She nodded once, as if that made perfect sense, and went back to her drawing. It was of a cabin under blue sky. No rain, no shadows. Hours later, when she slept, I walked outside. The sky was clearing. Eliza joined me, holding fresh documents from the feds. "Grant's plea deal is collapsing. He's blaming Morgan to save himself. He'll get nothing," I said. She smiled faintly. "And you? What do you get?" "Peace," I said, "if it finally stays." But peace never lasts untouched. Eliza's phone buzzed. A private number. She frowned, then handed it to me. "You should see this." It was a video, grainy, handheld. Morgan, somewhere dark, whispering into the camera. "He's not done, Dominic. Someone bigger's behind this. Grant was just the front. They're coming, and this time it's not about money. It's about you." The clip ended. I stood there under the night sky, her voice lingering like the echo of a ghost. Whatever storm I thought I'd outlasted, it wasn't over yet. The image of Morgan's terrified face stayed frozen on the phone screen long after the video ended. Her words echoed through the dark cabin. "They're coming, and it's not about money. It's about you." Eliza leaned over my shoulder. "You think she's telling the truth?" "She never warns anyone," I said quietly. "Not unless she's cornered." The house fell silent except for the low hum of the heater. Violet slept upstairs, unaware that her father was standing on the edge of another storm. Eliza started pacing. If Grant was just a front, who's above him? There's no record of higher investors in the shell companies. Then maybe they're ghosts, I said. The kind you can't trace on paper. She stopped pacing. "You can't stay hidden forever, Dominic. If they want you, they'll find you." I looked toward the hallway camera. "Good. Let them." By sunrise, the snow had started to fall, heavy and slow, a rare quiet over the chaos. We spent that morning tightening every defense around the cabin, double-checking the safe room, securing each line of communication. Violet sat at the table coloring again. Dad, are the bad people still mad at you? I smiled faintly. Not mad. Just scared. Eliza gave me a look, half warning, half respect. You're baiting them now. They left nowhere else to run, I said. They'll make their move soon. It didn't take long. Around noon, a black van rolled up the long dirt road leading to the woods behind the cabin. No headlights, no plates. My phone buzzed, a single text. End this quietly. No cops. Or she disappears for real. Attached was a still frame of Morgan, tied to a chair, blindfolded. Eliza read it, jaw tightening. It's a trap. I know, I said. But it ends here. She grabbed her coat. Then I'm going too. The snow muted everything as we drove down the narrow trail. Every tire mark disappeared seconds after it formed. Whoever sent that message knew what they were doing. Erase footprints, erase evidence. The coordinates led us to an abandoned bottling plant on the edge of town. Graffiti covered cracked walls, the smell of oil and rust hanging heavy. As soon as we stepped out, the echo of a voice filled the air. You came alone, Dominic? I recognized it instantly. Grant. I looked up toward the metal catwalk. There he stood, handcuffed, eyes wild, bruised, but talking like a man who still believed he had power. Beside him were two new faces, men in suits, polished, calm, holding silenced pistols. One of them said, Mr. Underwood failed to deliver, but his mess can still be cleaned up. You trained the best. We need that knowledge. It's worth more than revenge. I understood then. This wasn't personal anymore. It was recruitment. You want me to work for you? I said evenly. The man smiled thinly. Better than watching your family disappear. Eliza's gun came up before I could stop her. You touch that child, and you'll never leave this building. The man raised his weapon too, but then, from the far corridor, a sharp metallic sound silenced everyone. It was Morgan. She stumbled forward, still bound, dragging her chair with her. He's lying, Dominic. They're intelligence contractors, hired to clean Grant's crimes. The man fired without hesitation. The bullet caught her shoulder, spinning her sideways. I didn't think. I reacted. The world narrowed to instinct. I tackled Eliza down behind a crate as shards of metal burst around us. I counted their shots. 3, 2, 1, reload. I moved. The first man never saw me. I caught his wrist mid-reload, twisted, and slammed his weapon upward. The second dropped his magazine, shouting commands to no one still standing. Eliza rose, firing one clean round into a light panel. The warehouse went dark, red alarm lights pulsing through the smoke. Grant was shouting now, begging someone invisible for help. His facade was gone, just a man realizing he'd gambled everything and lost. When the noise stopped, only snowlight filtered through broken windows. The floor was scattered with shell casings. The two men were down, unconscious but breathing. Morgan lay against a beam, blood soaking through her coat, but alive. Eliza rushed to her side, pressing cloth against the wound. I looked up to the catwalk, where Grant hung by his cuffed hands, halfway crying, halfway laughing. Still think you're the good guy, Dominic? You just turned into me. I stared at him. No, I protect. You destroy. He smirked, about to reply, but then a new voice echoed from behind him. Not anymore, Grant. It was Preston, the federal agent Eliza had been working with. Dozens of armed officers stepped through the entrance. Drop it. Hands where we can see them. Grant froze. The air cracked with the sound of zip ties and shouting. For the first time since this started, the room felt heavier with truth than with fear. Eliza stood beside me, breathing hard, clothes streaked with dust. It's over, she whispered. I watched as Morgan was carried out on a stretcher. She looked at me one last time, weakly. I'm sorry. I nodded. There was no word big enough for that hollow. Outside, snow kept falling. Preston signed off the transfer to custody. Underwood's operations are finished. You'll testify, of course. Gladly, I said. What about your daughter? He asked. She's waiting. I replied, and that was all that mattered. By evening, we were back home. The cabin was dark except for the lamp near Violet's bed. She woke when I tucked the blanket around her. "You're back," she whispered. "I always come back," I said softly. She smiled, half asleep. "Then the bad people can't win." "No," I said, watching her drift off. "They never could." Eliza stood at the doorway, arms crossed, tired but smiling faintly. "Federal custody called. They're transporting Grant tomorrow." "Good," I said. "Let him see what real confinement feels like." For the first time in months, the woods were calm. No engines, no shadows, just snow falling gently on the roof. But beneath that peace was something else: release. For years, I'd trained soldiers how to survive wars they didn't start. Tonight, I'd finally survived my own. Snow melted from the trees in thin silver threads as winter finally bowed to spring. The cabin breathed again, not in fear this time, but in quiet ease. For the first time in forever, I wasn't waking to alarms or footsteps. I woke to Violet's laughter echoing from the porch. She'd built a tiny wooden model of our house out of sticks and called it the safe home. Eliza was there too, coffee in hand, reading through federal files stacked neatly beside her chair. The whole case had gone national, Grant and his partners facing multiple charges. Morgan had testified, finally breaking the silence that once shielded monsters. In court, she confessed everything: her part in the lies, the threats, the greed. But what she said last still replayed in my head. "He taught me how to love control. Dominic taught me how to love truth. I chose wrong." Forgiveness isn't light. It's heavy because you carry it for both people. But I forgave her quietly, not for her, for Violet. Now our world was simple again. Mornings were slow, evenings filled with peace instead of plans. I'd started teaching defense classes for veterans at the town gym. Not to train killers this time, but to teach men how to rebuild after wars no one sees. One afternoon, Violet asked me something that hit deeper than any bullet ever could. "Dad," she said, sitting cross-legged with her sketchbook, "how do you know when you've finally won?" I thought for a long moment before answering. When you stop fighting to destroy what hurt you and start living so it can never hurt you again. She nodded like she understood every word. Maybe she did. That night, we had dinner on the porch, just us, the stars, and the hum of crickets. Eliza laughed at one of Violet's wild stories about school, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like survival. It felt like life. The news on TV said Grant's empire had collapsed. His fortune frozen, his name erased from every contract he once owned. Morgan had moved away quietly, somewhere far, maybe chasing redemption. But I had no interest in the past anymore. My peace didn't depend on their punishment. It lived here, on this porch, in this laughter, in the smallest moments that could never be bought or taken again. As the sky turned orange and quiet settled over everything, I looked at Violet and Eliza and realized the story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen: honor, calm, family. Every fight since that night, when 7 men came to my door, had led me here, not to victory, but to balance. And as the stars blinked awake above the trees, I asked myself a question I want you, watching, listening right now, to think about too. When life finally stops testing you, do you recognize peace, or do you keep preparing for another war? I sat there, wondering, as Violet leaned her head on my arm and fell asleep. That's where this story ends. Not with revenge, not with fear, but with the kind of silence you earn. The silence that proves you made it home. So tell me, what kind of stories do you love hearing most? Emotional betrayals, family revenge, or epic military justice? Write it below in the comments, because I read every one of them, and I create these stories for you. And before you go, hit like if this story moved you. Subscribe politely if you want more gripping, unforgettable tales, and tell me where you're watching from. Your city, your country, because I'd love to know how far our stories travel. Till we meet again in the next thriller revenge masterpiece, take care of your peace, and of the people who earn your loyalty. See you in the next story.